We know so far, Kevin Rodriguez Zavala, 32, was there visiting the park near Orlando on September 17th and was found unresponsive on the roller coaster after riding it. What other details have you learned so far?
Yeah, just a tragic story unfolding out of Epic Universe. So he was on one of the dual roller coasters. It's called Stardust Racers. He was found unresponsive, still strapped to his seat. Off-duty deputies responded to the scene for a call of a man down. I've spoken to several people who were in line next to step on that roller coaster. They saw Kevin Zavala right there, strapped in, receiving some sort of emergency medical care. We did hear of a doctor in the area who was just happened to be in line, sprang into action, and she jumped over some railing to try and attend to this poor man. But ultimately, he was taken to an area hospital where he was pronounced dead. Now, I did briefly actually get a chance to speak with his sister on the phone. She was crying. She was telling me that her brother was at Epic Universe on Wednesday night there with his girlfriend. They were just supposed to have a fun night out. It obviously was not supposed to end this way. Now, we also did get the report, preliminary report back from the medical examiner's office, and the medical examiner ruled that the cause of death was repeat blunt force trauma. And they also ruled that the manner of death in this case was accidental. So just a really tragic incident. We're still working to figure out the fine details of what exactly happened up there during the ride that caused Kevin Zavala to die. We do know that this roller coaster in particular, Stardust Racers, it's only been open for a few months because Epic Universe just opened at the end of May, but it has already had a couple of incidents that's been marked down. So there's a report out there by Theme Park Injuries, and just between the months of April through July of this year, they reported that 2 people have come forward saying they were feeling unwell after being on that ride. One was a 63-year-old man. He reported being dizzy. The other was a 47-year-old woman, and she reported having vision issues after getting off. It is important to note, though, both of those people had underlying pre-existing medical conditions that they knew about. So Stardust Racers itself, it's a pretty fast ride. It gets up to 62 miles per hour, according to Universal's site. The coaster itself is about 133 feet tall, and it has 500 feet of coaster track. So it's a pretty wild, it's got those moves, it's got those turns, and it does have some requirements like most roller coasters do when it comes to riders. You've got to be a certain height, a certain weight to make sure those restraints keep you where they should. All riders also need to have complete control over their torso and their necks as well. So that's important to know as this investigation moves forward. We've also reached out to Universal. They said that their thoughts and prayers are with the family as they navigate this unfortunate loss. I've spoken with the ride manufacturer as well. They are a German-based company called Mack Rides. They said this ongoing investigation, so they can't get too much into the details, but they too feel terrible for what's going on with this Zavala family right now.
Let me ask you this, just to paint the picture for people that are watching this, because we have our own theme parks here in Illinois. And in some cases with these roller coasters, I know I was on one not too long ago, there's a harness apparatus that comes over the head, and then you're like strapped in around really at the waist. It like straps right in, sort of like around the waist. Can you kind of walk through, I don't know if you have this detail, but can you kind of walk through how you're strapped into this particular roller coaster?
It's similar to exactly what you're describing. The key point, there is some sort of a little bit of shoulder restraint as well, but the key point of restraint, like you just mentioned, is across the waist, that lap, a band that kind of, it's not a band, but that's a bar that goes across. This one does also have some sort of restraints around the shoulder as well, but the most spot where you're getting the restraint from, the jerking and the moving around would be across the waist area. And I guess that's why one of the requirements to be able to ride the ride safely is that you can control your upper torso and neck, because they know it's going to be a ride that you are going to be jolted around on.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Orange County medical examiner came out, I think you said this, and said multiple blunt impact injuries are the cause of death. Can you walk through maybe kind of what you know about that portion of this?
So basically, obviously, that lingo is somewhat medical in nature, but it basically means the person either sustained multiple blows from something or against something. So obviously we don't want to speculate too much into those details, but you can make, sense of those words in that way.
Any indication where is Stardust Racer right now? Is it shut down? Are investigators literally at it at this moment, kind of going through the mechanics of it?
We've had our chopper up over, we've had our drone up over. That ride is not moving. It hasn't moved since Wednesday night. They are still obviously investigating to see, what led up to Zavala's death. And I don't think it'll be, anytime soon that we see that coaster back on the tracks until they figure out exactly what went wrong and make some sort of changes. Or, this could be the end of this roller coaster after its short 4-month history. We don't know those details just yet.
Can you talk about exactly where this roller coaster is? This is a newer portion or a newer theme park, to my understanding. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. So this is Universal's brand new theme park. This is a multi-billion-dollar investment. This is Epic Universe. It just opened at the end of May. I believe May 25th or May 27th was the opening day. So this coaster is very new. And like I said, already had those 2 other incidents being reported of people, being unwell after going onto it.
Let me ask you this, Hannah. There's so many theme parks there. How do you handle the influx of information that comes in about, I'm sure you get updates about theme parks all the time. How do you handle that information? And when was the last time something of this magnitude transpired?
You know what? The one that comes to mind to answer your previous question first, the one that comes to mind was that horrific incident that was at Icon Park. Like you said, we're here in Orlando, Central Florida. We have parks galore. There was one incident at Icon Park where a ride malfunctioned and a poor little boy lost his life on that ride as well. And that was several years back. I know that family had been in ongoing litigation until very recently, actually. All those documents were sealed, so I don't believe we actually found out the what happened and transpired at the end of all of it. But that was the biggest one. Obviously, we have little blips here and there. Like I told you, we had that most recent report from theme park injuries. They believe between the months of April and July of this year, 12 total injuries were reported at all of our parks in the area just for that time frame this year. 7 of which I believe were at Universal and 2 of which had to do with this specific ride that we are talking about.
Let me ask you this. When these kinds of incidents happen, you mentioned the 6-year-old little boy, does this then turn back to business as usual? Have you ever seen where one of these rides are permanently closed forever, or are they updated and then there's a statement that comes out and then people are back on it riding all over again?
I guess it depends on the severity of the accident and whether or not the investigation results show that the ride malfunctioned, or perhaps the rider shouldn't have been on the ride and something was missed there, as far as maybe park attendance permitting someone who maybe didn't, qualify with the requirements. So in the case of the young boy at Icon Park, it was a slingshot type of ride, and that ride was taken down, no longer in existence there.
In terms of Mr. Zavala, you said he was there with his girlfriend. Is there any indication that she, too, decided to get on this ride?
We believe that she was on the ride with Kevin Zavala at the time, yes. We have not spoken with her yet. The family, when I spoke with his sister, asked, for time to grieve as they try to navigate this situation. I mean, a traumatic, awful event.
It is absolutely awful, and absolutely awful for anybody that was on it to witness. What's the next phase of all of this? What happens next? Do you wait for that investigation to come back? Is that typically a long span of time?
I would suggest that this would probably be several weeks, if not months, before we see any sort of results come from this investigation, because this is something where, theme park officials are going to want to make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed. They want everything buttoned up when they come out with these final results to find out what happened here.
I know you said the ride isn't moving. Is the park actually still open?
It is. Yeah, it is. It's business as usual at Epic Universe. I mean, I think maybe perhaps guests going in who have heard of it, probably a little bit somber or solemn around that area because you can tell, it's not up and running. But, this is a huge theme park. It is massive. I mean, a lot of people here are just visiting and they don't watch, local news. I know this has made national news headlines now too, but some people don't even know about this. So yeah, it is unfortunately business as usual. Some people just unaware of this tragic incident.
I do want to point out that the president and owner of Premier Rides, you did say that you got a statement from them. They did put out a statement, and here's some of what it says. Mechanical and electrical failures end up being probably the smallest component of what can create an incident. So it sounds like they at least are at this point aren't leaning to perhaps it being on the ride itself. So we'll have to see how this investigation shakes out. Hannah McKenzie with Fox Orlando, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. We appreciate it. All right. Stay with us. We're going to bring it back local. We're going to talk about really the rise of e-bikes, e-scooters, safety. I know a lot of people buy these online. They're buying them for their kids. They don't realize how fast they're going and how fast they can go. Alderman Matt O'Shea from the 19th Ward has introduced a resolution. He's going to talk to us about it coming up right after this break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Chicago Live. You are looking at a live picture right now. This is out of Broadview. This is an ICE facility where we know agents are staging, and we saw earlier protesters there clashing with those ICE agents. We do know that tear gas was deployed. We also know that pepper spray bullets were used, and we actually watched as many of the protesters had to use milk because their eyes were burning from those chemical agents. We do expect a live update from our reporter. She'll be out there at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We expect that update from Casey Cronus a little later. You can see those protesters are still staging out there. Of course, we will continue to follow that very closely. Now, this is another story that we've been following very closely in our community. We know that there's been some measures put in place in places like Hinsdale to try to combat the issue of e-scooters and e-bikes on the actual streets. And we've seen a lot of children that are now riding these. Some of them go, I'm talking 30 miles per hour plus and there's no driver's license required for this or anything. And so safety is the top priority here. And here to talk about this is 19th Ward Alderman Matt O'Shea, who has introduced a resolution calling for hearings on safety regulations and the use of electric scooters on public ways right here in the city of Chicago. Alderman O'Shea, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, Tia. This is a really important topic. This is about safety of our children.
Let's talk about it. What have you seen in your ward, maybe even outside of your ward, that led you to the point where you felt like I have to do something about this?
So over the course of the spring into the summer, and when the weather started to warm up, you started to see more and more scooters. What I would describe in the, April and May as more of these shared scooters that have contracts with the city. And then as the summer kind of really hit, I saw more and more private electric scooters flying up and down the streets and sidewalks of my community. As you mentioned, scooters that go upwards of 25, 27, 29 miles per hour, 2 children on a scooter, no helmets involved, racing on sidewalks and through our local parks, but even more so, racing and crossing arterial streets, intersections, not stopping at stop signs, not stopping at traffic lights. How something catastrophic in our community has not happened yet is shocking to me, because it's just an explosion, hundreds and hundreds of these scooters out on the street here in Beverly, Morgan Park, and Mount Greenwood.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where parents are listening to their children. A son or daughter comes to mom or dad and says, I want one of these. Parents go on Amazon or some other, source online. They don't look at that MPH. They're not looking at the miles per hour, and they're just buying it. And the next thing you know, the kid is zipping down the street. I want to bring up the fact that neighboring, not too far away from you, in Evergreen Park, they've actually implemented some rules there where they are requiring riders to have a valid driver's license. This is for both electric scooters and also electric bikes, and be at least 18 years old to operate. Is this kind of the way that you're kind of leaning with this? What are you hoping in terms of city council moves in this, I guess, on this? I know it's been referred to the Committee on Pedestrian and Traffic Safety. What do you want to see happen next?
So just to kind of back up a little bit, yes, Evergreen Park, my neighbor to the west, just introduced legislation a few weeks ago, passed legislation, but also neighboring the village of Oak Lawn this week put significant measures in place, banning electric scooters for young children. So the suburbs around me are running, taking point on this. My hope is to work with the Chicago Department of Transportation to try to identify what more we can do to make scooters on all levels safer, but then also to identify if something can happen, because, Tia, you can't legislate your way out of this, and you can't expect the Chicago Police Department to be curbing hundreds of scooter operators a day issuing violations. I think the biggest thing is that my hope is that you guys in the media could be helpful with this, is to make parents aware such an irresponsible decision to just buy your child a $1,000 scooter. And Tia, these aren't $200 pieces of equipment.
You're right.
These things are $1,000 plus. These kids don't know the rules of the road. These kids don't have any idea what they're doing. And when you take these things and you're racing in and out of traffic, something catastrophic is going to happen. So my hope is to begin a discussion through these hearings, but then also take this out into the communities to make parents more aware and educate people of just how dangerous they are, and that young children should not be operating these, period.
And, I have family that live in and around your ward. And you're right, Oak Lawn, Beverly, and obviously Evergreen Park as well. Those are some major streets in that area. So to see children riding and whipping, across Western and down 95th Street, that is a dangerous place to be, and not condoning you being on an e-scooter or e-bike in the suburbs or somewhere, more quiet. But those streets, the amount of traffic alone on those streets to be out operating something so powerful, you're right. It's bound to be that something catastrophic happens.
Absolutely. And hopefully we can all work together and try to find, some middle ground here to make this safer and to educate people.
What's the timeline here? I know that this was all introduced July 16th, and then it was referred to the Committee on Pedestrian and Traffic Safety. What's next? Is there a timeline on what has to happen next or what will happen next?
So my plan right now is on Monday, I will be meeting with representatives of the shared scooter companies, along with officials from the Chicago Department of Transportation, to try to identify what are we doing right now to make these things safer, as far as two on a scooter, or people not riding with helmets, or people illegally riding down sidewalks or through local parks, which is dangerous to people who are in the parks. But then take the issue to the full council to identify what more can we do to make our children safer. And I'm open to any ideas any of my colleagues have, but I know one thing: we can't sit back and wait for something tragic to happen. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, Tia.
Let me ask you this, because obviously, I spend a good portion of my day in the Loop. I see a lot of people, adults and children. Some probably live here, some probably tourists. They're hopping on lifts, or I should say, these lift bikes and these divvies and these scooters that they can just rent on the street. Are you thinking some of those should be included in this?
I will say our shared scooter representatives have been more than willing to come to the table and talk about what can be done, and I hope to flush some of that out in the coming days. I just want to be clear, these scooters, this is a way for adults to get less cars on the road, to get people, from their home, maybe to a metro station or a CTA station, or even, to the local stores, supporting small businesses. Having said that, my concern is young children, kids under the age of 16, racing up and down streets with no understanding of how dangerous they are or the rules of the road.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean. And you're right. It is on the parents. I think a lot of times kids come to you with a lofty idea. They want this bike, they want this scooter. And as a parent, you want to give them what they want, not realizing that in some cases you are buying something that is extremely dangerous. Any final words, Alderman O'Shea?
I just hope that my colleagues are willing to come to the table and try to figure out what we can do to make this safer. And hopefully parents out there who are watching this realize this is really dangerous, and we need to do more to protect young children.
Yeah. What's your biggest fear here? Is your biggest fear that, we'll be on the news talking about a child that was driving one of these, manning one of these, being killed?
That's exactly my fear. And just as the summer has progressed, I can't begin to tell you how many emails I have from constituents saying, Alderman, what are you doing about this? Pointing out to me that the Village of Evergreen Park has worked to address this. And now the Village of Oak Lawn has moved forward to address this. It's a different entity when you're talking about the city of Chicago, a city of 2.7 million people, or 2.7 million people. But yes, my fear is you're calling me in a couple weeks to say, hey, it finally happened. 2 kids on a scooter crossing Western Avenue in my community being struck by a speeding motorist.
What has the reception been, or have you had any type of conversations with any of the other alder people within council about this? Is this widely accepted? Are people receptive to what you're saying?
We have so much going on right now in the council, and that could be a conversation for another day. But I have approached colleagues as we've been in mid-year budget hearings, or colleagues I've been working with on other issues, to say, hey, have you noticed an uptick in these private scooters taking over your neighborhood. And every single colleague I brought it up to has said, it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, it is. And some has gone so far as say like, yeah, I've been trying to figure out what we could do to try to work on this. So I'm like, well, I've got a resolution that we're going to have a hearing, and I hope to be able to work with you on that. So more and more people have taken notice the significant increase in scooters in their community.
Let me ask you this, because I'll get into my own personal business for a second. My aunt decided that she wanted to buy a scooter, kind of like what you're saying, to get around, go to the grocery store. She didn't realize how fast this thing goes. And so then once she realized, oh my goodness, this thing goes 30 to 35 miles per hour, she was ready to pawn it off, give it to someone else. There was nothing that she saw. And really, I went through the write-up of it, and it never really indicated that it went that fast. Do you think that there should be something where when you go to buy these online, they say, because at that speed, in my opinion, you should have a driver's license. Do you think there should be something that says, can I see how old you are? You must be 18 or older, something to that effect at the ground level when you purchase these?
Absolutely. Absolutely. These things are so dangerous. And it's just what you said. I don't think half these parents even realize, effectively, they're purchasing a missile for their child to jump on and go up and down the streets of the city. And it's one thing to be on a residential street is dangerous enough. And we've had multiple reports of, someone open up their car door and someone's flying by on one of these things. T, the other thing is I have spoken to officials at both University of Chicago Medical Center and Advocate Christ Medical Center, which is the hospital not far from my community in Oak Lawn. And they both told me, yes, absolutely, the amount of people being treated in our emergency room is going through the roof. People on these electric scooters, the injuries. I had a young girl from my neighborhood fracture her arm, spend the summer in a cast. And more of those stories are popping up.
I do want to say this too, and I'm not trying to, put a damper on the e-scooter or e-bike business, but in some cases, I'll give you the example of my aunt who bought one. It looked very innocent. Honestly, it looked childlike. The way that it was, and I think that's why she was under the impression that it was, a low-level, slow-moving scooter. The colors that it was, the design, it was almost like, honestly, like targeted for a child, but has the capacity for an adult, if that makes sense.
Exactly. That's exactly it. These things are small. They're compact. But as you said, some of them can go close to 30 miles an hour.
I mean, literally with the press of a button, because I went to see what she was talking about. I got on it, and literally there was no, I'm not comparing it to a sports car, but with one click, boom, you were off. And if you're not used to that, if you're not an everyday driver, if you don't drive a car on a regular basis, you're not used to that type of power being in your hands, especially if you're a little person with all this power. And now you got to figure out how to steer, how to move. You're absolutely right. It can be very dangerous. Matt O'Shea, it's always a pleasure. We appreciate you. And let us know how this goes so we can have you back on Chicago Live. We appreciate you as always.
I'll double back with you next week. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Okay. Coming up, we are talking about these new vaccine recommendations that have come down. And we're going to talk to a doctor really about this. In the world of medicine, and I think in our everyday world, this has become controversial. We're going to break it all down. Stay with us right after this. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We want to take a listen right now. Democrats from the Senate, they are talking to the media. This is before they go on their weekend break. They're speaking in Washington right now, kind of like a week wrap up. Let's take a listen to what they have to say.
Reforms we might be able to make when it comes to that issue, or any others for that matter, Democrats want to consider or contemplate. I mean, we got a defense authorization bill that's waiting to be voted on, which they've held up. Again, for no apparent reason that I can tell. Everything has to be, we're clear on our side, we're ready to vote. So it's there's plenty of stuff to do on the agenda, including that issue, but this is not the place to do it, and it just never has been.
Where is the place to do it?
Well,
before
I
the
mean,
end of the year?
I think that when we get to the point where we're actually, if we're going to, totally fund the other agencies in the government, and we get the 3 appropriation bills that have already cleared the Senate floor into conference, hopefully done, give us that additional 7 weeks after the end of the fiscal year to get some of these other appropriations bills that are available for consideration, that are out of the Appropriations Committee, on the floor and considered, and then we can have that conversation, that broader conversation, when it comes to the full funding of the government for the fiscal year. And there will be other, year-end vehicles, as there always are. I mean, there's always health care extenders that we end up doing at the end of the year. So there'll be legislative vehicles available for this. But I don't know why you would take hostage a 7-week continuing resolution to try and do $1 trillion of policy. This is just, it's unheard of. It's not serious. And they can't make that argument with a straight face.
Senator, this basically did happen in 2013 when Republicans refused to do a short-term CR because they wanted to defund the Affordable Care Act, which was a $1 trillion issue. Did Republicans make a mistake back then? Did you learn any lessons back then? Because, it does seem like Schumer's kind of taking that same strategy and saying, hey, I want to have negotiations. Back then, Obama wouldn't negotiate with you. You were very frustrated. We ended up with a 16-day government shutdown, accomplished nothing. What's your sense of looking back at that?
Well, I think I think that is one of the lessons you learn, Steve, from past experience. And when you're the ones who are trying to add a whole bunch of new stuff, generally I think you're the ones who end up getting blamed when there's a shutdown. And I think again, what you're going to be looking at when push comes to shove about 10 days from now, and we actually have to have the vote on the bill that would keep the government open, is you got a bill that's passed the House, a bill that the President's prepared to sign, and that there will be plenty of Republicans voting for, and we'll need a handful of Democrats in order to keep the government open. So if they want to use this as an opportunity to add a whole bunch of other stuff.
That is Senate Majority Leader Republican John Thune speaking there, and this is what they're talking about. So today the House of Representatives passed a 7-week funding bill proposed by Republicans to fund the government through November 21st, and the bill, which passed largely along party lines, would then extend government funding with some additional money for security, but does not include Democratic health care priorities. So the Senate rejected both bills. Hours after the House vote, the Senate failed to advance both the Republican-passed bill and a competing Democratic proposal that included enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies. So that is what they're talking about. And so you may be asking, what about the shutdown risk? Has it increased? Well, this is what we're seeing right now with both of those bills failing and lawmakers vowing to leave Washington for a week-long break. The prospects of a partial government shutdown on October 1st have now increased. So that is what they're speaking about now. We know that they are going on a long weekend break, so we will see and monitor how that shakes out. We want to talk about something that has been extremely controversial and has brought up a lot of questions, and that is the new vaccine recommendations. And here to talk about it is Dr. Jonathan Pinsky, Medical Director of Infection Control at Endeavor Edward Hospital in Naperville. Dr. Pinsky, thank you so much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk about what we have found out here. We know this panel that was handpicked by the U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They advised that the vaccine known as MMRV not be given before age 4, and that children in that particular age group instead get separate vaccines. What's at issue with that?
Well, The new ACIP panel is newly installed, and what's happening is these new recommendations are going to be questioned based on the panel's legitimacy. The doctors, pediatricians, and physicians who give these vaccines will be looking toward guidelines from professional societies, such as the American College of Pediatrics, American Medical Association. And in the state of Illinois, there will be a panel, an expert panel, making decisions or making recommendations rather on vaccinations. So we will all be looking to those recommendations for guidance going forward.
What are your thoughts about this? I know many doctors and public health experts, they say the committee is really creating fear and mistrust around vaccines, really at a time when the U.S. vaccination rates are already dropping. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, this is a big concern, and I think that's why there is mistrust building with the new ACIP. But rest assured, we should have guidance from other experts in other professional societies and from the state of Illinois. And the vaccine guidance from insurance companies and what insurance companies are covering for is largely a state issue too. So we don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but we should be looking at guidance from other organizations.
What would you say to parents that aren't really sure what to do in light of this news? Maybe they're not sure, where their kid is in terms of age. If they're not sure if they should get the vaccine, should they not get the vaccine? As a medical professional, what is your opinion? What would you tell a parent?
Well, this panel recommended that all the vaccines be given. It was just that they be separated into two parts. So the MMR covers measles, mumps, and rubella, and then varicella is another vaccine. Previously, those were two separate vaccinations, but the MMRV is a combined vaccine. So what this group said is that you can give all these vaccines, but they would just be separated. You would have an MMR and then a varicella vaccine separately. So I think there's concerns around, getting access to vaccines and things like that. But there was no change in the guidance about which vaccines and which infections babies need to get vaccinated for.
What makes this different to separate those vaccines? What is the problem with that? Or is there a positive to that?
Well, there's only a certain number of doctor visits, and if you separate the vaccines, you could risk missing doses. And so, if you can give the vaccines together, you can kind of get them all out of the way, and less of a chance of missing vaccines.
Let me ask you this. I wrote this question down knowing that we were going to do this interview. What is really the role of the advisory committee on immunization practices in the U.S., specifically regarding vaccine policy?
Yeah, so this is different than the FDA. The FDA approves vaccines, and then the advisory committee makes recommendations as to how to use the vaccines. So in the past, these recommendations were largely taken and adopted by professional societies, by states. But I think it's going to be a little bit different now, where there's going to be other pop-up organizations that make recommendations and not necessarily follow those guidelines from ACIP.
Do you think that, looking at the fact that, you mentioned what could happen by separating these vaccines, putting them into two parts, does this increase any type of risk in children at all? Or make them susceptible? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the risk would be that you might miss a vaccine. For instance, if the child gets an MMR vaccine, but then waits on the varicella vaccine for another visit, while they're waiting, they could be exposed to chickenpox and get the infection.
What do you think about the idea? A lot of parents, when they realized what was going on here, some parents felt like that was just too much medicine in really one dose for a child. Is that true, or is that not true from a medical standpoint?
No, I mean, it's safe to give multiple vaccines, and these data is all looked at by expert medical societies. And in previous years, the ACIP did recommend giving all the vaccines together. So we will be anxiously awaiting recommendations from other societies and from the IDPH.
And do you know when those recommendations will come out for parents to eye those?
I don't have any information on that, but I would expect in the next few weeks or months.
Perfect. Dr. Jonathan Pinsky, Medical Director of Infection Control at Endeavor Edward Hospital in Naperville. We appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Have a great weekend. Stay with us. We have more Chicago Live right after this break. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We are taking a live look at the big board right now. We know the stock market today has been overall good. The Dow, S&P 500, NASDAQ, they've all taken a I would say uphill swing. They've gone upwards after Trump held a call on trade. We are looking right now. You can see it's fluctuating up and down, hovering at least up around 140 points. We want to go also live to Broadview. This is where the ICE facility is, where agents have been staging, and we've seen protesters clash with those ICE agents. There was a huge protest out there earlier. We know that chemical agents had to be deployed, like tear gas, pepper spray bullets were used, and we watched as a lot of those protesters had to wash their eyes out with milk. Of course, we are still watching to see what unfolds there. You see a few protesters are still out there at this hour. We will have an update probably sometime after the 2 o'clock hour. Looks like a federal vehicle is going on the inside of that gate right now, which they have kind of blocked off from public view for obvious reasons. Of course, we'll continue to follow this story as it continues to develop. We want to go to a story that I think everybody can get behind, and that is Friday Night Lights. That is when high school teams in our area go head to head. And this time, Loyola and Brother Rice are going head to head. Loyola being number 3, Brother Rice sitting at number 4. And the coach is joining us right now, Coach Casey Quindenfield. Are you there? Or Quindenfeld? Are you there, Coach?
Yes, ma'am.
Did I get it right? Is it Quindenfeld?
Quadenfeld.
Quadenfeld. Okay, close but not close enough. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about this. What makes this really a good matchup for tonight?
Well, first and foremost, it's another Catholic League game, specifically in the Catholic League Blue Division, which is the top division of the 6 total division of the Catholic League here in Chicago. And then you have 2 teams that have always been in the Catholic League Blue. They've never not been in that division, as it changes every 2-year cycle. Loyola Academy is a great program. It's a great school. And Brother Rice here in the south side of Chicago, playing in Northside School. It's always a heated battle, and we're excited.
You got something to prove tonight. Loyola Academy, number 3. You're ranked number 4, so not too far behind. What will happen tonight to kind of seal the deal for your team here?
The rankings are kind of out the window when it comes down to game time. So I know that all of our boys are going to be, really locked in. They're excited for the game, the matchup, CCL Blue, bragging rights. So I know that our guys are prepared. They're ready to go. We just need to go out there, play with relentless effort and compassion for one another, and play together as a team. And, we'll see what happens.
When you're taking on a number 3 team, I know you're saying the rankings are out the window, but I think there's you go in there ready to beat them so that you can continue to go up in the rankings as well. What will we see with your team tonight? Is it the running game? Is it the quarterback? What exactly would you say attributes to the team's success?
And, I think that we're a really well-balanced team. We're led by a senior quarterback that's committed to Army West Point, and C.J. Gray. He played all of last year. He did a really phenomenal job going up to Wilmette last year and playing Loyola Academy. And he's back for, another opportunity. We have a great running game. We do some things in the pass game that keeps teams off balance. And then I think that the backbone of our school is playing really good defense. But it's always going to be a tall order and a great challenge to face a really good program.
Let me ask you this. In terms of excitement, how excited is your team for this game tonight?
The boys are really excited. I know they're excited every single Friday night, but like I've been hinting at, Loyola Academy is a 3-time defending 8A state champs. And that's something to say for their program. And our guys understand that. They know that. It's similar to kind of taking on the Alabamas and the Georgias or the Ohio States of the Big Ten, right? That's the name, that's the top team that everyone is trying to vie for. And our kids are really, really excited for 7 o'clock to come and play some football.
Anytime somebody says the Buckeyes in my presence, I got to give props where props due. I'm an Ohio State graduate and actually covered the team for quite some time in college as a journalist. Let me ask you this. They had a pregame ritual. What's your pregame ritual, and are you planning to go do that after this interview?
We start pregame routine at about 3 o'clock, but I've had a kind of a busy day. We've had an alumni golf outing. We actually had Ohio State coaches here in the building today for some of our players and recruits. So, our normal routine starts with chapel. We are a Catholic institution, so we come together as a team and pray together. We have team meal. We go through meetings. So we try to replicate a college program as much as possible to keep our guys focused to the attention and detail. So we just go through our normal routine, try to stay calm as much as possible, and build up to 7 o'clock.
You mentioned that Ohio State was in the building today, which tells me first word I think of recruiting. How big is it to have your athletes recruited by some of these big name universities, some of these Big Tens, Division I schools, and is that common for Brother Rice?
Obviously, this is my fourth year here at Brother Rice, and I came from out of state. So I know that Brother Rice, throughout the history of our school, we've had guys that have played Division One. I do know that right now we've had, right now currently on our team, we have more kids that have opportunities to go on to the next level than ever before, which is a really, really good thing, not only for those individuals and their families, but also the other kids that are on the team, because other colleges are watching the tape because of those high caliber individuals. So it's a blessing for those guys, those families that are all involved. But just for our program, it's really, really good as well.
Let me ask you this. I know a lot of times when it comes down to recruiting, I know schools don't really talk about that part of it, sometimes for legal reasons as well. Is it often that you have coaches that are recruiting, spotting and sitting in the stands at the games?
Yeah, so typically what happens with college football programs, during the fall, they'll come out to games where they're recruiting a specific individual during their bye week, right? So, we had the University of Oregon last week was at our football game because one of our players is on their radar, and they're recruiting him and his family very, very well. So when they have either a bye week, or Oregon in this case was playing Northwestern, so they were in town, and they feel as though they have time outside their meetings and their protocols to come and check out the game and things like that. So it happens when there are players in a program that are being recruited, and typically it happens between buys or if it's just a local college program.
Let me ask you this. A lot of times, in part, I won't say it completely attributes to the success of the team, but it's nice to be somewhere, especially if you're away or even if you're at home, and you hear in the stands somebody rooting for you. How is the fan base for Brother Rice, and how will they turn out tonight?
They're a really passionate fan base, which is interesting because the South Side of Chicago, specifically in the Catholic League, there's about 4 to 5 schools all within, a 7-mile radius. We have our rival is 1.2 miles down the road, and the next school is 3.3 miles down the road. So, we're all within close proximity and geographic region. But the alumni here at Brother Rice, the community at Bay, they're all going to come out. They're all going to support. Our student section's going to support, and they just want what's best for the kids, for the program, to play football the right way on the field, and to represent the BR on the side of our helmets.
All right. Well, we hope you pull out that W. What's the mascot for Brother Rice, Coach?
We're the Crusaders.
Go Crusaders. Okay, we're rooting on the Crusaders tonight. Coach Quadenfield, thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to have you back talking about some of your players that are going to some of these amazing schools. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, have a great weekend. Stay with us on Chicago Live. Brian Jackson is coming up next for the 2 o'clock hour. He'll have much more. We'll see you after this break. Chicago Live. I'm now joined by Brian Jackson. We've been following the protests that happened outside of the Broadview ICE facility. Protesters clashing with ICE. Kind of want to give you the lay of the land. They're back out there now. We did see a car move into the gated area there, and then that is when people started to kind of stage in front of that automatic gate there around the building. But I kind of want to give you the lay of the land here so you'll know exactly why the protesters have gathered here. The facility is a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Processing Staging Facility. This is located in Broadview. It is officially meant solely for short-term holding up to 12 hours, but activists have said that detainees have been held longer, days, or even more than that. And at this facility, they're saying that it lacks proper infrastructure for extended stays. Questions have come up from protesters if there are beds, if there's proper showers, etc. And the protests have really ramped up and occurred really because of this lone fact. We know that ICE immigration enforcement has increased in our area under what they're calling Operation Midway Blitz.
And we do know that the demonstrators, they've been there at this ICE facility in Broadview for the last 3 weeks or so. But things definitely took a turn this morning. Some of the protesters, they started gathering at that facility just after 7 a.m. This morning. Their plan originally was to be there from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. Also planning to come back later this evening at 7 p.m. when some other people get off of work. Things definitely took a turn. Looks like something's getting ready to happen here.
Yeah.
Can't tell if people are taking pictures. I don't know if a vehicle is getting ready to come out of there.
Was that something thrown at him? Or
I'm not sure.
You saw a little dust around his feet.
We saw some smoke there.
Around his feet. It looks like they're trying to get pictures of something. I don't know if it's a person. They did just, right before you came up, Brian, a white Dodge Durango vehicle, SUV, made its way through that gate. It's unclear maybe if they were taking someone out of there, if someone had been detained, and maybe they're seeing that activity on the ground there and they're trying to record it. But it looked like there was some dust around that guy's feet that made him back away.
Some type of smoke or some dust. Because earlier today, when things got a little tense out there, we are told that federal agents did shoot pellet guns and they did deploy tear gas into a crowd of the protesters. There's one video that's been making its way, not only on our air, but circulating on social media that showed ICE agents shoving a woman to the ground there. And again, those crowds started there at about 7 or so o'clock this morning. Some of the protesters, after that tear gas was, you can actually see somebody on your screen there, they have returned with a mask. Several people, actually. You have a guy in a white shirt and then somebody else in that black shirt. You can see that they both have masks on. And just a few moments ago, we saw what appeared to be some type of gas or smoke coming from right near that gate where the protesters have been lining up outside. And because of that gas that was diffused a little bit earlier today, some of those protesters were saying they were gagging, they were coughing, they were vomiting. But they also shared water with each other and tried to pour it over their faces to kind of recover from some of the gas that was given there. I spoke to one of my colleagues at actually another local station here in the Chicagoland area who was out covering this as well, in addition to our own Joni Lum, who said that this was the worst he's seen it since 2020. Going back to some of those demonstrations, definitely dealt with some burning of his eyes and in his throat as well. Our Joni Lum, who we spoke with several times this morning, reported some of the similar conditions. We actually had to move her live shot location a few times to get her away from some of those fumes. And even when she was delivering her live report, you could tell that something was bothering her in her throat because she was exposed to some of these gas and some of these other tactics that these federal officials have been using outside of this facility, this ICE facility in Broadview.
Well, it's very clear after watching this, because we've been watching kind of this shot up that we have right now for a while. At first, there weren't many people near the gate. Then a few people gathered near that gate. And then after we saw what appeared to be some type of chemical agent deployed, now everyone near it has a mask. Nobody, to begin with, when we were really watching this shot, appeared, most of them didn't appear to have masks. So clearly something was used. And like you said, they did deploy that tear gas and pepper spray bullets earlier today. We saw people dousing their eyes with milk, trying to, cool that hot feeling that you get in your face when this has happened to you. If you've ever covered a protest that goes to this degree, you've experienced this in the air. And so, yeah, they're trying to protect themselves. Unclear why in that instance, they would use a chemical agent because the person really didn't have access to them. They were
Exactly.
blocked by a gate, but it was used for whatever reason. So we have continued to follow this. We do expect to have a report on this at some point throughout the day. Of course, on this show and throughout our newscast as well. So we'll continue to follow
Casey
this.
Cronus is
We
heading
do.
there to kind of pick up this story from Joni this morning. I do want to read you guys one quote from 44th Alderman Andre Vasquez, who was right up front in the middle of all this as it was unfolding. He said that we were kind of on the front of the line as the vehicle was coming. And so we were looking to block the vehicle. There were a lot of protesters trying to block this vehicle from entering that gate that we just showed you there on your screen. He says that still kept driving and almost ran over someone. And at that point, we started seeing the pellets. He's referring to the rubber pellets that were fired at them from some of these federal agents. So he goes on to say, so it was tear gas and it was pepper spray and a little mix of both. So you could feel it even underneath the mask and start coughing and spitting out to get everything out. Vasquez says that he was wearing a mask at a time, and he says that even through the mask, you can still feel it. Like right now, you can still feel a little burning in the eyes, the back of the neck, just because of the chemicals themselves. He says that he was able to walk and clear his head a little bit and grab some water and able to take care of himself, but he wanted to make sure that some of the other people outside of this ICE facility were okay as well. And that's a firsthand account from 44th Alderman Andre Vasquez, who was right in the middle of this as things took a turn earlier this morning.
I want to also point out the fact, if we can go back to that shot for a second, obviously some of those people are protesters, but a good majority of those people are journalists. They have high-tech cameras, so that's not someone that's just on the street, recording for recording's sake. Those are people that are trying to document what's going on in the city. You see the gentleman on the left-hand side, the woman, or I think that's a woman or whomever it is, on the right-hand side of the screen. Those long lenses, that is an indication of an actual journalist, maybe from a newspaper, perhaps from a news agency like ours that's on the ground trying to document what's going on. So they're not there to, give pushback to the ICE agents. They're there to cover what has been going on in the city. And yeah, it would be nice to be able to see them do that, so that is what they're doing. And yeah, it's interesting to see it's hard to see what they're looking at from this vantage point.
Because we're kind of blocked here.
Right, because we're kind of blocked and hampered from, what their vision is. But clearly you can see some movement, some feet moving under that automatic gate there. There is some movement. So I don't know if they're waiting on a car to come back out. We did see a car come in. It appeared that most people, maybe they were, sitting in a car or something, so they weren't prepared for that car to go in. But yeah, we've watched a car go in, SUV, Dodge Durango, and so maybe they're waiting for that vehicle to come back out. But yeah, this is a story that I think we'll cover for quite some time because we have
probably
been
throughout the weekend.
We've been covering it
Yes,
for quite some time.
We will.
So.
And we are expecting to possibly hear from our Casey Cronus, whether it's in Chicago Live in his 2 o'clock hour or later today on Fox 32 Chicago in our 4, 5, and 9 o'clock hours.
Yeah.
We will definitely be giving you updates from what's happening in Broadview because we are expecting a second round of protests. We're seeing some reports that a larger turnout is expected sometime after 7 p.m. when more folks get off of work. They may join some of these demonstrators out there in Broadview.
Yeah, so we'll be covering that. Stay with us right here on Chicago Live. We'll be right back after this break.
right, time is now 2:09 on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. We're going to head back out live to Broadview, where in our last break we were showing you this gate where you can see a couple of people. They have cameras, not sure if they're journalists, if they're demonstrators, or maybe a mix of the two. That gate has since opened. It looks like there is some type of Dodge SUV behind these, I don't know, federal agents and people in uniform. Looks like, I'm not sure if they're trying to close this gate. We're just waiting to kind of see what's going to happen here. Things at this Broadview Ice Processing Center turned a little ugly a little earlier this morning, where a similar vehicle was trying to make its way into that facility. And demonstrators, they were trying to block that vehicle from making it there. And that is when there was a confrontation between some of the ICE agents and protesters. We've seen videos of people that were pushed down by the ICE agents. We're looking on the roof. Looks like some type of weapon. I'm not sure. We were seeing some reports earlier where ICE agents were shooting pellets of some kind. That looks like a pellet gun. So you can see somebody on top of the roof there that is aiding the ICE agents in preparation for whatever is getting ready to happen here. We're not sure if this vehicle that is behind the gate is getting ready to make its way out. So we're kind of seeing this, I guess, standoff between, I guess, protesters, people documenting what is happening there. You can even see somebody in a mask, looks like with red glasses, kind of sitting in this driveway where this vehicle could potentially be making its way out. So we're just kind of waiting to see what is going to happen here between these ICE agents as well as the protesters. You can see a lot of protesters there. They have on masks because earlier today there was some deployed tear gas on the crowd to try to move them out of the way as they're trying to make their way inside and outside of that facility. Again, we've seen reports, and we just showed you a second ago, where federal agents have been shooting pellet guns as well as deploying tear gas on this crowd of protesters. They gathered there at about 7 a.m. or so this morning, and sometime between that 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. hours we were showing you. As you can see now, it looks like those ICE agents, they are taking some steps forward, and they are asking for the group there to back up. You can see the person I was just mentioning who was in the red glasses. They've since picked that person up, and you can see they're kind of pushing them out the way as it looks like, you can see some pushing there as ICE agents are physically moving people out of the way as these vehicles are making their way out. Again, this has been going on since earlier this morning. You can see some of the ICE agents, they are armed with pellet guns there. It doesn't look like anybody has deployed any of those guns, at least in this incident. But now there are actually several cars that are making their way outside of this ICE facility in Broadview. Our very own Casey Cronus is actually on the way there. We're going to have a live report from her probably in the 2:30 hour of Chicago Live. But as you can see, maybe 4 or 5 vehicles just made their way outside of those gates. Jim, are we going to move on to our next interview? Okay, that's what we're going to do now? Okay. All right, time is now 2:12 on this Friday. We are going to get back to Broadview at some point a little bit later on this hour. Now we want to take you to a story on Chicago's South Side, where Quantum South Side, there is a protest and a controversy that is brewing over a proposed $9 billion Quantum Shore development that is planned for the former U.S. Steel South work site. We are now joined by Angie Orozco, and she is going to explain her viewpoint on why some people in that neighborhood do not want this facility to be there. Thanks so much for your time there.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I want to start with, why do you and some of the folks from Southside Together oppose the construction of this quantum computing campus on the Southwork site?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Angie, and I'm with the Southside Together. And we oppose the quantum facility from coming to the Southwork site because we feel the facility is highly detrimental to the community. Its potential impacts sort of outweighs the advantages to what the project can bring to the community. And honestly and quite transparently, we feel We feel as though we've been a little bit blindsided. Our city officials, be it state and city and county, which have gave upwards of $1 billion to this project without consulting the community, has given us great alarm. For a community that is in dire need of resources, of community improvements, we have not seen much of that over the years. So we feel quite blindsided to see this facility come and give that amount of money from our elected officials when there's been little investment in the community to begin with.
What would you say to maybe supporters on the other side of this to say that this is bringing jobs and more innovation jobs to the far south side of Chicago?
I would tell them to look into that idea. The site quantum stated that they would bring 150 jobs to the site, but we know that quantum mechanics and physics and so on and so forth probably will go into jobs with folks with PhDs and master degrees. And this is primarily a working class neighborhood. These folks have this intergenerational neighborhood. These people have been here for a long time, and we are interested in staying. So we don't see it as advantageous at all. The 150 jobs in which they propose will not be reflected from the folks in the community.
Yeah, Angie from Southside Together with us here on Chicago Live. You've said that this project isn't the kind of investment that this neighborhood wants to see. So what kind of investments do you feel would be better suited for this community?
Well, we've been talking to community members every week. We've been canvassing, we've been phone banking, we've been on the corridors and the business districts and seeing how folks feel. So we have quite a lot of data and information. And many folks, they're interested in seeing something. There has been several proposals on the site already which have not come into fruition for various reasons. So folks are interested in seeing some form of development in the community, and be it one that will produce and bring actual jobs to the facility. Hospitals, like say for example, like Quantum claim that they will be bringing Trinity and Advocate Hospital, but that's actually going to be a reduction in hospital services in the community, what they're proposing to build. So we want to see infrastructure that can support our community, businesses, our business corridors fixed. Folks are talking about investments in our schools, and also investments in entrepreneurial activity. So there's been a wide array of folks envisioning what they want to see to the community, and we want our elected officials to adhere to that.
For people maybe watching this who aren't familiar with this neighborhood or this side of town, could you just maybe paint the picture of where exactly this proposed facility is located here on the south side of Chicago?
Yeah, so it actually crosses is in between quite a few neighborhoods. So South Chicago, South Shore, Calumet Heights. It's on 83rd, I believe, and South Shore Drive, so right next to Rainbow Beach. And community members have been asking for improvements on Rainbow Beach for a while, and we've not seen those things happen. So to see this sort of development come onto the lake and see the opening of the lake and in green spaces, which folks have been requesting, they want to keep it as a green space, they want to improve it as a green space, and folks can have access to that. So people are asking for an array of things. The community in which it sits on is neighboring a lot of different communities. I believe the 10th district and Alderman Mitchell and Alderman Chico's district, in which the neighborhood encompasses, or where the development will encompass. So it crosses a number of neighborhoods. So this is a concern for us.
Now, this South Work site has been tied to several previously failed redevelopment proposals over the years. In your view, and from people who live in the community in that neighborhood, how is this latest proposal either similar or different from those of the past?
It's different because one, for example, was calling for housing, jobs, and different things like that. But due to the brownfield and the redevelopment and remediation necessary to even build on the land, has proven problematic for any other development to come into fruition. This one is different because it does not consult community. It does not have community in mind. We fear that it will extract extremely from our water resources, which will subsequently increase our water bills. We feel that it's going to extract a lot of energy, which will subsequently impact our electric bills. We've already received a 45% increase in ComEd, which folks are alluding to these types of centers. So there's a lot of different things that has been proposed, but due to the lack of remediation, the lack of cleaning the brownfield that has come, into its totality, although there has been some cleanup that has been done. It's been hard to get this site to do anything, but this site, particularly what they're proposing, does not have the community in mind. And we fear for that. We fear displacement. We fear gentrification pressures, and we definitely fear property taxes rising, rent rising, and our utilities and essential services being neglected and also rising.
So at the end of the day, what is your version for the Southworks site? How specifically would you like for that piece of land to be used to benefit the entire south side of Chicago instead of what is currently being proposed?
Yeah, so this is a community that has been heavily divested. And many of folks are working class people. Many homeowners in the community who has tax dollars have been able to stabilize the community despite some systemic issues in which they have experienced. So we want to see things that can benefit us, where our children can go and play and to explore, where folks can have jobs, where folks can feel really invested in their community. And it's really an opportunity to, youth centers and different things like that. It's really an opportunity for us to envision how we want to see our community and subsequently do something about it. And particularly, oftentimes Black and brown neighborhoods are told there is no money or there is no reason to invest, but our elected officials have given $1 billion without a blink of an eye, without consulting any of our community members about what to do with this site. So for one, we'd like a more transparent process regarding that. And for two, we would like to see what community members would like to see on their facility in that site. And we've been talking to folks and we've gathering information and gathering data, and we will be ready to present that.
All right. Yeah, Angie from Southside Together, thanks so much for your time this Friday afternoon on Chicago Live.
Thank you for having us.
All right, time is now 2:21. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we're going to have a look at the weekend forecast with Mark Strell. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. It's beautiful Friday afternoon, joined by Mark Show. Take a live look outside. I feel like the river still looks green out there.
It's always green, Brian.
It's
always
always
green.
green this time of
It's
year.
been green since 1837. Some days it's greener than others, like
Okay.
around St. Patrick's Day, but
Yeah.
it's always got that green. sheen to
Yeah,
it.
and this Sunday we're going to have some people swimming in that green river
Wow,
a little
yeah.
bit earlier.
That's exciting.
Yes. Also exciting, these temperatures in the 80s this time
Yeah.
of year.
Well, you know what? It has been way over indexing temperature wise the last several days. We've had temperatures up around 90 degrees in some cases, and we should be in the 70s. Ooh. Nowhere close to that. We are going to fall back into the upper 80s today. It will be a little bit cooler along the lake. We've got 80 degrees for tomorrow. Now, here's the deal. From tonight on out, there's a chance of some showers, maybe a little thunder as well. Best chances over the weekend into Monday, about a 50% chance. This is not going to be an all-day rain. There'll be some well-needed rain showers.
Yeah.
We could definitely go with that. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, again, some still chances of wet weather, along with temperatures finally falling back a little closer to where they should be, back into the 70s, Brian.
All right, Mark Strell, thanks so much for your time as we take a look at that 7-day forecast. Some much-needed rain potentially coming this weekend, but it's not going to ruin all of your weekend plans. Of course, Bears have a kickoff against the Cowboys on Sunday just down the road here at Soldier Field. Bears need to win real bad, too, by the way. All right, time is now 2:25. I want to get to our next guest. We're joined by Dr. Clyde Yancey from Northwestern Medicine. He's here to talk to us a little bit about some of the new research happening there, as well as the Northwestern Cancer Gala that is coming up. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks for being here.
Delighted to be here. Thank you for your interest.
So, Dr. Yancey, why does heart disease remain one of the leading causes of death, not only in the U.S., but also here in the city of Chicago?
We really need to capture this almost in a broader context, that the way in which we live our lifestyles, the way in which we recreate, our choice of leisure time activities, all of these have health consequences. It turns out that many of our choices, whether it's how we eat or how we recreate or don't recreate, or we physically active or not, become manifest initially as characteristics of heart disease. Moreover, we are continuing to deal with a significant concern about high blood pressure. High blood pressure is rampant throughout society, throughout all of Chicagoland. So if you take lifestyle decisions, dietary decisions, inactivity, plus high blood pressure, add to that any kind of family history, diabetes, or smoking history, that qualifies as this burden of heart disease. But it's important to not focus on the heart disease per se at the outset, but the way in which we live that leads to the likelihood of developing heart disease, because that's where we can make the big difference. That's where the interventions can happen.
And what are some of those changes that we should be making? I've been reading stats that say that Chicago Southside communities are disproportionately affected by heart disease. So what needs to change? Is it diet? Is it exercise? Is it family history? A combination of all these things to kind of help maybe trend this stat in the opposite direction?
So the first thing that needs to change is an upfront awareness, a reawakening, if you will, to recognize that even though we are so much better now than we've ever been before dealing with heart disease, we still have to understand that everybody is at risk. And the way we manage that risk is to think about our decisions. I can make this very clear. We need to be thoughtful about our diet. If nothing else, we need to eat less. We need to manage our weight more carefully. We all need to be physically active, more active than most of us are. And we need to think carefully about special risk surveillance, knowing what our blood pressure is, our blood cholesterol, our blood sugar, and we need to understand our family history. Talk to your relatives. Make certain you understand whether or not there's a family history. And if you smoke anything, stop. It's no way that that benefits your health at all.
So, Dr. Yancey, for someone who maybe they go to the doctor at least once or twice a year and they feel perfectly fine, are there any warning signs that they could be at risk for heart disease a little bit later down the line?
So there's several parts to that equation that are very necessary for us to discuss. We have to be very careful not to fall into the persuasion that since I feel okay or I feel fine, everything must be all right. That's not correct. It can take quite some time before heart disease becomes clear. And when it does become clear and the symptoms occur, that's at a point where, yes, we have great interventions. And so to be very clear, we can help people with heart disease and with symptoms of heart disease better now than we ever could before. But the wise decision is to not get there And so when we understand that we all are at risk, and what we need to do when we're at risk are simple things that are easy to implement, why run the risk of waiting for the symptom? Why not anticipate being always free of the symptoms, always able to live and enjoy life as you wish? So that's why the emphasis is on prevention. But yes, once you get here, if you've got a symptom, we can do more for you now than we could ever do before.
And speaking of being able to do more now than you were before, what kind of strides have been made from research that has kind of helped, treat heart disease in the last 5 to 10 years? What kind of breakthroughs are we seeing in research that is leading to better outcomes of late?
So your question is quite fortuitous, because just this evening we'll be celebrating the 20th year anniversary of our Heart and Vascular Institute, named for Neil Bloom, a local Chicago philanthropist who had the idea of trying to bring the most sophisticated care to Chicagoland 20 years ago. And 20 years later, we've done some extraordinary things. We've participated in research at a national and international level. Let me be very clear. In every domain of heart disease, we've seen fundamental breakthroughs over the last 20 years. Nothing is as it was 20 years ago. Whether the breakthrough has been in technologies and what we can do now in terms of repairing the heart without surgery, whether it's the great strides we've made so that we have 50% fewer heart attacks now than ever before. And if you have a heart attack, the improvement in survival is at least at 75 to 80% better than it's ever been. Those are extraordinary numbers. If you take the risk of death overall due to heart disease over the last 3 decades, that risk of death across the board is down 50%. But we still have a burden of heart disease because of this issue we're discussing today. The risk factors, particularly hypertension, add to that obesity, medical obesity specifically, and so we still wrestle with this issue as we should. But the breakthroughs have been across the board in every domain. It's been extraordinary.
This 20th year anniversary gala is coming up on September the 19th. Could you give us a look at how the funds raised at this gala are specifically used? Are we talking, is this used to hire more doctors? Is it used for research? How exactly are these funds used?
It's an important question, because the best way to answer that is to look backwards before we look forward. We've received a number of substantial landmark gifts, if you will, from Neil Bloom and his family. With each gift, we've been able to fundamentally change our infrastructure, but not only our infrastructure, our talent base. And so we've been able to attract talent from across the country. I came to Chicago from Texas 15 years ago. Other members of our team have come from Cleveland, the Cleveland Clinic specifically, have come from the Boston area, all of the leading facilities in Boston. Most recently, talent has come to us from Montreal, Canada. But having the capital, the resource to attract the talent, and then creating the infrastructure and working with a like-minded healthcare corporation like Northwestern Medicine, supported by a leading medical school like the Feinberg School of Medicine, gives us this kind of tripartite set of assets that involves capital, opportunity, and the wherewithal from a scientific base to really make this as attractive as possible. We have all along wanted to make certain that we could shift one of the epicenters of health and healthcare to the Midwest, specifically to Chicago. We know about the coastal areas, the West Coast and the Northeast. Why can't the Midwest be a place where the absolute best in science, health, and healthcare occurs? That's our trajectory.
And got one more for you on this Friday afternoon. Looking ahead, what would you say is your vision for 20 years down the line of fighting heart disease?
That question is prescient and brilliant at the same time. Because again, if we do the same strategy looking backwards, 20 years ago, I would have never have envisioned that we'd be able to lower blood cholesterol with a single shot taken once a month. 20 years ago, I would never have envisioned that we'd be able to repair the heart valves through the skin without surgery. Operations when I was training, they carried with them a 30% risk of death. And now we can do these in 48 hours, effectively, successfully, even in older persons. So when you start to think about where we were 20 years ago and thinking about things we couldn't envision, I'm really excited to anticipate 20 years from now, what is it that we're not even contemplating right now? Not even contemplating that might come to pass in 20 years. But in terms of being prescient, we know that there are a couple of things on the cusp that we've never been able to deal with before. We know that the explosion in our understanding of genes is helping us better understand who's at risk. But more than that, we're able to start to manipulate the genes, saying that slowly, and change the natural history of certain cardiovascular conditions. And think about moving from being fascinated and wowed by artificial intelligence to now deploying artificial intelligence to help us work more efficiently, more effectively, understand precisely who's at risk and how we can personalize our therapies. That's what's pressing about your question, because these things are on the near-term horizon. But I'm really excited about that 20-year window. Who knows? Who can anticipate? Just looking at where we were, where we are, thinking about where we can go, it really does make you breathless.
All right, we got a bright future ahead thanks to the research being done at Northwestern Medicine. Dr. Clyde Yancey, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for your interest. Pleasure to speak with you.
You as well. All right, we're going to take a short break. Your time is now 2:34 on this Friday of Chicago Live. We'll be right back. Time is now 2:36 as we take another live look from Broadview, where earlier today there was some live demonstrations where things got a little testy between protesters and ICE agents as well as federal agents. We had pellet guns being deployed, tear gas as well. Our Morningside reporter, Joni Lum, was right in the middle of it, where she actually inhaled some of that tear gas as it was being, as she was just trying to, report on what's happening there. We're now checking in with our very own Casey Cronus, who is on her way there. You can see the car in the background. How you doing this afternoon, Casey?
Hey, Brian. Yeah, bear with us here as we are in the news car now, headed to Broadview, where, as you just saw there, one of our photographers is still on the ground. You can see the boarded up facility there. This is a processing center for ICE intake, essentially, in Broadview. We're going to kind of assess the scene when we get to the ground. We know some protesters were still there, but as you mentioned, Joni was right in the middle of it today, where tear gas and pepper spray was kind of flying as federal agents were trying to push those protesters back. Now, a couple of things that I want to touch on here. Today, the mayor of Broadview, she issued a statement. She was calling out the Evanston mayor, Daniel Biss, who was there in the middle of all of the action today. Now, what she said is Evanston Mayor and congressional candidate Daniel Biss's repeated appearances and provocations at the ICE facility in the village of Broadview with his videographer and photographer in tow are helping to fuel the agitation of an already tense situation, which could endanger our police officers, firefighters, demonstrators themselves. That is a quote from the mayor of Broadview, Katrina Thompson. Now, we just got a response from the Evanston mayor, Daniel Biss, and I'll read that to you guys now. He said, quote, "The only people endangered right now are our neighbors being abducted off the streets and the peaceful protesters being tear gassed by masked federal agents. I encourage the mayor of Broadview to join the many protesters, advocates, and elected leaders in standing up to ICE instead of facilitating their illegal, immoral, and dangerous tactics." So a lot going on, as you know, Brian, in this developing situation now with elected leaders kind of in the middle of it too.
Casey, I want to ask you maybe a personal question. You're a refined reporter for us. You reported in probably all 77 Chicago neighborhoods. How do you prepare for a story like this, knowing what happened there earlier this morning, compared to how you get ready for your typical stories when you're out there?
Yeah, so our chief of operations at the station, Ted, he actually sent us with some helmets today, this afternoon, just knowing what happened this morning. So we have goggles, we have a couple of different levels of helmet, I guess is the best way to describe it. One, it's kind of like a ball cap with like a shell inside, to a sort of tactical helmet, you know, just to be safe when we get there. We don't really know what we're going into. So we've got masks, we've got goggles, and we have helmets. We also have a case of water. You know, these are things we have to think about because we don't know just how long we will be in place. So hopefully, of course, the hope is always that you don't have to use those things, but we will assess kind of when we get there.
Yes, we will assess when you get there. We're now taking another live shot. Looks like a vehicle kind of made its way inside there. We are expecting, are you also seeing or hearing any reports, Casey, of maybe a second larger protest happening this evening at 7 p.m.?
Yeah, so from what we understand, there was one sort of planned protest this morning, and protesters are preparing for another larger event at some point today. And, you know, the main point of contention out there seems to be whenever those gates do open and a vehicle is either entering or leaving the facility, that seems to be kind of when most of the action happens. You may have mentioned this already, but Kat Gonzalez, she's a candidate for Congress in the 9th district, were there this morning when she was thrown to the ground, and she told Joni she's bruised, a little sore, but thinks she's okay. You know, we have video of that we'll show you guys later today at 4 and 5. But really just, you know, we don't know what to expect until it all starts to unfold.
All right, we will send you on your way. Definitely be safe out there. We'll be looking forward to your reports. If somebody wants to follow you, if you're tweeting, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, where can people follow you, Casey, to maybe keep updated between now and our next show at 4 p.m.?
Sure. Yeah. My handle is Casey Cronus TV on X. Same with Instagram and Facebook.
All right, Casey, thanks so much for your time, and be safe out there tonight.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, I do want to give you a little bit more perspective on what happened out there. So crowds started gathering outside of that ICE facility located at 1930 Beach Street at about 7 a.m. this morning. As you can see, there's still a couple of dozen people out there, some in masks, some in hats. Earlier today, there was a car trying to make its way into those gates, which is kind of back there on the backside of your screen there. And some protesters got in front of this vehicle and tried to block it from being able to enter those gates. And that is when things took a turn south, where some federal agents, they shot pellet guns, they deployed tear gas on these crowd of protesters who were trying to block that entrance there. As Casey just mentioned, a woman was shoved to the ground on the video that's been making its way on Fox 32 Chicago, as well as across social media as well. Also, in the middle of all of this, while this was happening, was 40th Ward Alderman Andre Vasquez. I want to read you another quote from him where he says, "We were kind of on the front of the line as that vehicle was coming, and so we were looking back to block the vehicle, and it just kept driving, almost ran over someone. And at that point, we started to see the pellets." Earlier today on Chicago Live, earlier this hour, we showed you that a ICE agent or federal agent was located at the top of that building just to the left of your screen, armed with a pellet gun. Did not look like they fired upon anybody this afternoon. I do want to continue reading you the perspective of 40th Ward Alderman Andre Vasquez. He went on to say it was tear gas, it was pepper spray, a little mix of both, so you could feel it even under the mask. And he said that he started coughing and spitting out to get everything out of him. So we've definitely seen several reports from both reporters on the ground as well as protesters that report that they were dealing with some type of chemicals that were released by the federal officials and ICE agents as they continue to make their way in Broadview. It looks like everybody's taking a lot of steps back from that gate. We will definitely keep you posted on what's happening there. And again, we'll be checking in with Casey a little bit later on this afternoon as she reports what is going to happen there in Broadview. We are expecting another large protest happening sometime later this evening. For now, your time is now 2:45. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back here on Chicago Live. Tell that 247. So you've been very busy this week, as always.
Catching my breath a little bit
today.
today.
One or two things happening. But for now, we're going to focus specifically on, I guess, the latest kind of power struggle between Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker. And this is now odds over a recently signed police and fire pension bill. Could you just lay out what's happening here?
Well, so it's a bill that's going to cost Chicago an estimated $11 billion over the next 30 years. And what it does is it gives a boost to newer police and fire employees and their pensions in Chicago here. And the rationale by the sponsor was that they needed to do this to bring these employees in line with other employees across the state. And this was something that the CFO of the city warned Governor Pritzker's office in advance, saying, look, this is going to bankrupt the city. This is going to bankrupt potentially these pension funds that might become technically insolvent if we add this new liability into it. And the reason that's interesting is because Pritzker ended up signing this bill, but then he said, well, I signed it because the mayor never called me and said he opposed it. So this email that we got was from the mayor's CFO basically warning about it. Now, the governor's right to some extent. He said, yeah, the mayor did never call him and say, don't sign this bill. But he certainly did get warnings about how bad it was. And by the way, there were a lot of civic groups that were also warning about how bad this was going to be for the city's finances. And the governor went on and signed it. And what we've seen now is this kind of this finger pointing, because they're both kind of running from this bill a little bit. Mm-hmm. The mayor said, hey, we warned him. The governor saying, well, hey, you never called me. And so that's kind of the crux of this. You never call me on my cell phone, or whatever the song is.
Chicago already has a lot of financial issues between this. We got the school board. So where does this latest bill, or this latest, I guess, pension fund, does it put the city in an even deeper hole?
Yeah, I mean, what it will do is, even starting this year, it will be tens of millions of dollars in extra money it has to spend with no source of revenue to fund it. By the year 2050, it will start costing $750 million a year just for this one little provision for police and fire pensions. That's not to mention all the other pensions, teachers, city workers. This is just this one little chunk, eventually going to cost almost $1 billion a year. And I talked to the sponsor of the bill. He said, look, those numbers don't lie. They're right. But we had to do it. We had to be fair to the police and fire workers. And it'll cost more if we don't do something now. So the mayor said we need progressive revenue, and we need Springfield to change the law here so Chicago can collect more sales tax or something like that. And it just fallen on deaf ears. The mayor has not had good relationships in Springfield or with the governor, and so the notion that they're going to be able to get Springfield to help out with some revenue options is going to be it's going to be an uphill battle, to say the least.
Now, politically, what do you see maybe the fallout from maybe the Johnson side or the Pritzker side as this moves forward?
I think that a lot of folks are already upset, folks that live in Chicago that see $11 billion. This is my property taxes. We're going to have to find a way to pay this. And some folks that are upset with the governor for having signed it, and perhaps the mayor for not having lobbied harder for it. And the politics is interesting because the police and fire unions, though they're very politically active, and the governor, if he wants to run for president, I think he made a political calculation to be like, well, if I don't sign this, then someone's going to run an attack ad against me. It's like, why don't you support better retirements for police and fire workers? So he was in a politically tough position, but sometimes these positions call for making politically disadvantageous decisions. When you're talking about a city that is already in fiscal trouble. And this is why the city's in fiscal trouble, by the way, I should mention, Brian. I mean, over many, many years, Daley and other mayors and other governors, they didn't pay into the pension funds. They promised these very lavish, I shouldn't say lavish, but they promised these costly retirement packages to all city workers. And then what happened was they didn't make the payments into these funds every year. And then the funds are where they are now, which is woefully underfunded. And they have to be paid. I mean, those
promises have been made.
Promises have been made. Unless you go bankrupt, you have to pay them. And so the city can't declare bankruptcy, but I was talking to some lawmakers that are saying, like, if it might get to the point where lawmakers in the state would have to authorize a city being able to declare bankruptcy. Because how else is the city going to pay all this?
Right. Now, when it comes to the mayor called, the mayor didn't call, is this something we see very typical as far as the lack of communication, or is this maybe a political strategy for this specific issue?
I think it's both. I think that's a good question. And with this specific issue, they both don't want their fingerprints on it. They both are responsible partly for having it become law. Now they're both saying, well, hey, don't look at me. Look at the other guy. But, but typically you want the mayor and the governor to have a good relationship because the city of Chicago is the economic engine of the state, and it does need help from the state. It's not going to be able to solve its mess alone. And if there's no good relationship, you've got all those suburban and downstate lawmakers that are like, why are we going to help out Chicago? We got our own communities to care about. And what you have to do is have that good relationship so the governor or legislative leaders can, maybe persuade other lawmakers to get on board with things that help Chicago, because the argument is, well, so goes Chicago, so goes the state of Illinois. It's the economic engine of the state. Let's not kid ourselves. It is,
What else you got coming up on the show this weekend?
Well, one of the things I'm looking at right now, which is interesting, is like if you live in Chicago, you might notice you have not gotten your property tax second installment bill. You were supposed to get that months ago, and I'm trying to figure out when that might come out. It's because of a technical glitch with this company called Tyler Technologies that the county hired to manage this whole system of, like, setting the property tax rates and bills and sending them out. And they've still had problems getting this together. So I'm hearing maybe in the next week or two, they might be able to sort of get this stuff figured out and send those bills out. But if they don't, that's cash flow. These governments, we talked about how broke they are. They actually need the cash coming in to make the payments that they have to make. So that's something or that merits some following over the next couple of weeks.
All right.
And the situation in Broadview and ICE and the contention there. And, there's a lot of political candidates for Congress that were out there. And, you wonder where the line is here between, are they out there protesting? And they certainly have a legitimate right to be out there protesting. But then do they take that into, like, making it like a political thing for their campaigns?
Political ad, yeah.
You got to just watch for that.
All right, we'll keep it an eye out. Paris, thanks so much.
All right,
for your
thanks,
time.
Brian. You got it.
All right, now we want to turn our time to the Schaumburg Boomers. They are back in the Frontier League Championship. Right now, the series is tied 1-1 with Quebec as the final shift to Wintrust Field this weekend.
The French Canadians.
Yeah, we're
All
joined
right.
now by Coach Michael Larson. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, General Manager. But yeah, the team just got back from Quebec. We were able to split there and ended a 17-game home winning streak in the playoffs that Quebec City had, and come back in a best-of-5 series tied at 1 with 3 games at Wintrust Field this weekend, with an opportunity to take home our 5th Frontier League title.
What would it mean to bring that title back home to Schaumburg? And right now, the series is tied at a game apiece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're a very proud franchise here in Schaumburg. We're pretty well known for continually having one of the best teams in the league. So it is a huge thing to bring that title back. We lost to Quebec in 2022. That was our last finals appearance, but we had won in 2021 as our most recent title. With the league sitting at 18 teams, spanning from Chicago to the East Coast to down south and up into Canada, being in the finals is a massive accomplishment. But we want to take the title home. We want to be celebrating. We want to be shooting champagne around again because it means so much, to us and to the community.
Of course, we want that champagne toast for you guys as well. Game 2 slipped away a little bit late in that one. What's the mindset heading into Game 3? Is there anything that you guys maybe learned in Games 1 and 2 that can be applied for the rest of the series?
In baseball, sometimes 1 or 2 pitches changes an entire game. And, a 3-run home run in the bottom of the 8th flipped it from 2-1 Boomers to 4-2 Quebec. And we were going to go into it tonight just trying to get this one, get up 2-1 and put them against elimination. We got Salata pitching for us. He threw a complete game shutout in his last playoff appearance. But the team's loose. We're just looking to take advantage of the opportunities in front of us. And, it's going to be a great night. I know it's a great crowd coming in for tonight. Quebec was just sold out back-to-back nights out there. And we should have a great crowd tomorrow for Game 4 as well.
And you mentioned the crowd. The Boomers did have the best home record in the league this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just how much of an advantage is it playing in front of that home crowd?
Oh, it's huge. We led the league in attendance again for, I think it's the 11th or 12th straight season, and averaging just under 5,000 a night. We had some games, the 4th of July and some others with 8,000 plus fans. And the atmosphere just becomes, like a big league-like atmosphere when everybody's involved and hanging on the pitches. And that's what we're looking for tonight. We're looking for, might not be 8,000, but it's going to be a really strong crowd. And we're hoping that they will be excited and ruckus and get our team pumped up.
All right, Michael, we got about 2 minutes left or so. The team is calling this the Drive for 5. Where did that name come from?
Well, it's a 5th championship, and I think they just were playing off the rhymes and the wordplay there. But our organization has only been around since 2012, and this is the 6th finals appearance in the last 12 seasons. We have had the same manager, Jamie Bennett, throughout this entire run. I've been here since the fall of 17 myself, and the baseball pride in our organization, and our owner Pat Salvi, and the amount we invest in being the best baseball team we can be is a huge thing for us, and our guys are embracing it and they're excited. And of course we just want that fifth, the drive for five, as I've been calling it.
The driver five, we're speaking with Michael Larson, the GM of the Schaumburg Boomers. Michael, when is first pitch this weekend, and where can people get tickets if they want to come out and support?
Yeah, for all three games, first pitch is 6:30. Gates open at 5:30. You can get tickets at boomersbaseball.com. Obviously, being a best of five series, we know we have tonight. We know we have tomorrow night, which is game 4. If necessary, if we're tied at 2, we will have game 5 Sunday night at 6:30. But yeah, the website, boomersbaseball.com, you can come out to Wintrust Field.
All right. GM Michael Larson of the Schaumburg Boomers, thanks so much for your time, and good luck this weekend. Schaumburg has not clinched the title at home since going back to 2014. They're calling this one the drive for five, so hopefully they can get it done this weekend against Quebec. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we have had a packed show on this Friday edition of Chicago Live. Do we want to end the show maybe going back to Broadview if that shot's still up, Jim? We're going to take a live look out there. You can see a flag is there. Right now, things are very calm out there in Broadview. That was not the case earlier this morning. We spoke with our reporter, Casey Cronus, who was on her way there. We'll be having more updates throughout the day right here on Fox Local, as well as Fox 32 Chicago. I'm Brian Jackson, and this has been your Friday edition of Chicago Live. We'll see you right back here at 1 o'clock starting on Monday.
We're going to do a 160-page, year-long investigation into a police department. Words and facts matter. Honestly, when I saw the video and I heard the story, I was aghast.
To me, being a police officer anywhere, but particularly in a city like Chicago, I mean, what an honor. These are the ones you looked up to. These are the ones you said thank you to when you're walking down the street.
It doesn't mean we're perfect. And bad things are going to happen in bad places with bad people. And sometimes, we make mistakes. Data-driven policing. We didn't lock up everybody. It's about locking up the right person at the right place at the right time for the right reason. Deploying your resources across that. I wonder if anybody who was involved in this actually was a police officer. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wearing the Badge. I'm Gary McCarthy. Our guest tonight is my buddy, Pat Brady. Pat has a great background. He was a state's attorney. He was a U.S. attorney, right? Mm-hmm. And he was also chairman for the Illinois Republican Party, which I think is akin to being a fire hydrant in a dog pound.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But we got those Democrats right where we want them. They're getting cocky.
That's what Chesty Pullett said at Chosen Reservoir. We could shoot in any direction and hit the enemy.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we're going to talk tonight about the investigation by the United States Department of Justice Civil Rights Division into the Chicago Police Department in the post-Laquan McDonald world. So before we do that, Pat, just tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in some blanks for us.
Well, like I said, I came up here after law school in 87, worked in the state's attorney's office. Then I worked to the Justice Department in Washington, D.C., where I did white-collar financial crimes and public corruption. And then I ended up coming back and doing another tour in the state's attorney. So I was a prosecutor for almost 10 years. And then in the private sector, I was a partner at a couple consulting firms where we did these complex financial investigations. So almost 20 years of doing investigations and 10 in law enforcement. But we worked